Hey everyone, Andrew here, back for another Barista Basics video. So as you can see, yes, I have returned to nature once again. I have this beautiful backdrop of these flowers that are blooming outside of the side of my house. So I thought that they would be a pretty nice backdrop to match this beautiful day that we are experiencing. And I'm very happy to be outside once again. So we can go ahead and get into today's topic, which, as you can tell from the title, is point of service and handoff plane courtesies. So I think obviously a good place to start here would be to first identify these terms. Point of service is simply the first point of interaction between the cashier and the customer. So this is essentially where the cash register is, the customer places their order and the barista receives their order. And that's a pretty ubiquitous term I found throughout, any sort of business that has a cash register. Handoff plane, however, is sort of a more selective term I found. I've actually only really heard it utilized in Starbucks, but, I assume it's also applicable for other, food service places where there's a designated spot for the customer to receive their food. And so obviously, as it sort of implies, the handoff plane is where the goods are handed off to the customer, and it's sort of the final point of interaction between the worker and the customer. So obviously, well, it isn't obvious, but I just celebrated my 2 years of working at Starbucks, being a barista, this past May, like the month that just passed. And so, I've kind of have been doing this for a good bit. And of course, it's obvious that having, working in this position through that time, I have encountered really positive customers and really negative customers. I've also interacted and worked with really positive people and really negative people. And, I shouldn't need to make this video. I mean, anything I'm gonna say here is for the most part common sense or just common courtesy. But unfortunately, there seem to be some people that just aren't very considerate and courteous. So I felt that this video would be appropriate. If you maybe work with somebody or you have a friend that isn't exactly the nicest to not only Starbucks workers or, food service workers, but retail workers, whomever, any sort of worker, then, maybe this video would be helpful for them. But anyways, we can go ahead and get into the actual meat of today's video. So I think how I'm going to organize it is, actually, I'm just gonna sit crisscross applesauce for this because my legs started to fall asleep. This is the third time I've tried filming this video, sorry. Anyways, so how I'm gonna organize this video is I'm going to first speak on POS, and then start off by speaking about how the barista can be more courteous towards the customer, and then also providing some tips for the customer to be more courteous towards the barista. Then I'm going to switch gears and talk about the handoff plane and discuss those two parties in the same order. Discuss the barista first and then the customer. So to start off, probably the biggest thing that I found any sort of cashier, but this is more specific to Starbucks, what any sort of barista can do to, create a very personable interaction at POS is to, of course, ask the customer their name when they place the order, but also asking them how to spell their name, I feel, is also really important. Even if it's, a really common sort of basic name, there are endless possibilities of how people can spell their names, right? And names hold a lot of meaning to certain people. There are, of course, people that couldn't care less, but there are also people, that feel very strongly about that. So I think not only asking the customer their name so that the customer can receive their beverage when it's completed, but more importantly, asking them how to spell it is super important as well. Because it also just shows the customer that you care. You care enough to make sure that you are, you care enough to ask them that question. Now, this is sort of a more general tip, but obviously asking the customer how they're doing, of course, greeting them and, wishing them a nice day when the interaction is complete are also very important and make the overall transaction more enjoyable. I think another useful tip, specifically for Starbucks baristas in particular, is to be very patient and to be very helpful and provide aid for the customer. Because Starbucks can be a pretty overwhelming experience for certain people. The company tries really hard to create, a quote-unquote third place for the customers. But that still doesn't mean that a customer won't come in there and feel a little anxious because, they're not entirely sure what they'd like to order. And, the menu is always changing. Well, the items we have essentially stay the same, beside for like certain promotional things. But, the signage changes to reflect these. It's not a fully comprehensive list either, typically. And yeah, it can just be an overwhelming experience, especially with this sort of stereotype that I have encountered a few times in the past where, Starbucks baristas are considered to be sort of, what's the word, like pretentious, kind of, like hurry up and order, and, get out of my line kind of thing. Like, yeah, I've just heard that kind of stereotype go around before, which makes me a little upset because, the majority of the baristas that I've met and worked with have been super, super nice and not, jerks like that at all. But, there are worse stereotypes out there. I'm not trying to complain about that. What I'm trying to say is that because this minor stereotype exists, it's important for us to try to combat that. And one way of doing that, of course, is by not behaving how the stereotype dictates. So, exercising patience if the customer isn't quite sure. Also, in that case, asking leading questions, even simple ones like, do you like the taste of coffee? Do you not like the taste of coffee? Do you want something caffeinated? Do you want something decaf? Do you want something really sweet or something more bitter? Do you want something fruity, something chocolatey? These are, do you want something with dairy or not? These are all leading questions that can help the customer finally determine what they'd like. Making suggestions is not only useful because, if the customer is really having a hard time deciding and you have a line forming behind you, that will aid in their decision making, but it also helps ensure that the customer is really getting the drink that they would like. And yeah, okay, so I think that's all for the barista end. Now to speak on the customer, how they can be a bit more courteous at POS. Of course, the first thing, I guess even before you get to POS, but the first thing is to be patient in line, please. Huffing and sighing and pouting and tapping your foot with your arms crossed isn't going to make the line move faster. It's only going to create, this sort of negative energy that, can be felt not only by the customers that are around you, but also by the workers themselves too. So, if the line's taking a little bit longer, you can leave the line too. Like, if you're all the way at the back of the line and instead of, throwing a big hoorah about how long you're gonna have to wait, do you really need the Starbucks that bad that day? Could you not come back maybe half an hour later and see? It's essentially, there are other avenues for you to explore besides just, being kind of a jerk about it. So that's a really helpful tip even before you get to the POS. Now, when you get to the POS, another helpful tip, of course, is to greet the barista when they greet you. I can't even tell you how many times I have greeted a customer at POS, you know, been really warm towards them, asking them how they're doing, and they just immediately go into ordering their drink, which is fine, you know, they're getting down to business. It's fine, it is what it is, but, you know, it definitely, you know, it doesn't feel nice, you know, kind of being ignored in that manner. Especially for something like it's very easy to just say hi back, you know, it's not, it takes, I said that in what, 0.2 seconds. So, you know, little things like that go a long way. Along that same note, also, you know, saying bye to the barista when they say bye to you is also really nice too. And, oh, another big thing that is more specific to Starbucks would be that if you are ordering a drink off the quote-unquote secret menu, which, as we discussed in a previous episode, doesn't actually exist, but if you're ordering something, you know, a drink that has become really popular throughout the internet, that isn't, you know, sort of an officially recognized Starbucks beverage, exercise patience with the barista, please. You know, since it's not an official Starbucks drink, not every barista is going to know how to make it, let alone even have heard of it before. So, you know, it's important to be understanding with that, especially if you're getting these kinds of drinks. One thing to also sort of make the interaction smoother would be having the recipe put up on your phone, because most likely, like I said, the barista, the cashier, is not going to know what you are referring to or how to make the drink that you want. So having the recipe put up on your phone, or, you know, if you have it written down, if you have a picture, whatever, that's also really helpful, and helps, you know, quicken the interaction. Yeah, so that's kind of all of the kind of tips I have for POS. Now to move on to the handoff plane. This, I'm gonna start with the barista side, the worker side again. Obviously the first thing here is also going to be to greet the customer, you know, when you call out their drink, and, you know, saying that they have a nice day. Because you have to remember, like I said, POS is the first point of interaction, so first impressions are really important, but also handoff plane is the last interaction, and lasting impressions are also very telling and important, and can even be more memorable than how they, brushing up against me, hey, it can be even more important than, you know, because it leaves a lasting impression. People usually remember something that happened more recently than something that happened in the past, is all I'm saying. So it's super, super key to make sure that that interaction is really nice, you know, because even if, for example, the POS interaction wasn't necessarily the best, you can rectify that and, you know, have the customer leave in a more pleasant mood at the handoff plane. So it's super, super important. So, you know, greeting them when you hand off their drink and saying bye to them are super key. Speaking on handing off their drink, obviously when you hand off a drink, you say the customer's name. But I feel like it's also just really good practice to also say what the drink is. You know, you don't have to go into super, super specifics if the drink, you know, has like, my hair is acting a little crazy, sorry. If the drink has like 20 modifications or whatever, you don't need to list out every single thing. But, you know, listing out at least what the core drink is, along with the person's name, helps to alleviate confusion, you know, because customers can have the same name, obviously. And there have been multiple times in the past where, you know, and I've been guilty of this as well, of just calling out a customer's name. The wrong customer takes the drink, and then, you know, the customer who originally got the drink is, you know, standing there for like 5-10 minutes and is like, hey, sorry, where, like, you know, other people that have ordered after me have gotten their drinks, I'm confused, whatever. And then you have to be like, oh my god, 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 ooh, it's a hornet, sorry, I mean, it's not a hornet, it's a wasp. That scared me, I'm sorry. Wasps wig me out. bees are nice, but hornets are a little more mean. Sorry, I just like need to gather myself. So, right, saying the drink as well with the name is helps to lessen the confusion. Also, another really important piece of information that is really key for Starbucks baristas specifically, I guess not, any sort of food service position, but if the customer says that their drink is made incorrectly or that it doesn't taste right, just go ahead and make them a new drink. It's just so much easier, and it's just not worth it getting into an argument over the customer. Even if you know that you made the drink right, for example, the person at POS may have misheard something or have entered a piece of information wrong, and the customer, like, you made the drink right because you saw what's on the ticket, but that may not have actually been what the customer ordered. So there's a lot of, sort of variables in that process. So it's really important as well to, just be like, so sorry that, the drink doesn't meet your standards. Tell me again what you would like and I can go ahead and make it for you ASAP. That's really important too. Are there any other pieces of advice for the barista at handoff plane? I would also say, well, okay, this can sort of be applicable. Usually, the person who hands off the drink is the person on bar who made the drink themselves. And, as people are waiting for their drinks, they're going to be waiting in the lobby, the cafe area. Obviously not now, but in the past, that's how it goes. And, while you're on bar, it's really nice, to, if there's a customer, sort of lurking around, asking them how they're doing, asking them how their day's going. You can, well, I mean, you don't want to ask personal questions, of course, but, you asking, nice questions like that makes the overall, it really just creates more of that third space feel that Starbucks really tries to go for. And, obviously it shows that you care, because customers, while they're waiting, the majority of them aren't expecting for a barista to talk to them and ask them how they're doing. So that makes it even better and even more of a, makes them even happier to experience that, somebody going out of their way to ask them how they're doing. So I feel like that's also really important too. Now, to switch gears and to talk about things that customers could do to be a bit more courteous at the handoff plane. First of all, saying thank you. Actually, this applies for each party in each position. Saying thank you is super important at POS and handoff plane. But of course, saying thank you at handoff plane when you receive your drink is nice. If the barista tells you, if the barista at the handoff plane greets you and, they tell you to have a nice day, it's also, of course, nice to tell them to, take care, have a nice day as well. Sort of on the flip side also of what I spoke about before, if you receive a drink and it doesn't meet your standards, if it's not what you ordered, or if it doesn't taste quite right, you have a right to be dissatisfied with that and perhaps a little upset, but it's important to not act on that. Even if, you're feeling really upset about it, I feel like, the baristas have a tough enough job as it is, having to deal with, there's just a lot of things at play when you're at work, and one stressor that is not needed is a really mean customer. So, if a drink is made incorrectly, coming up and saying, hey, I ordered this drink and it doesn't taste exactly right. I'm not entirely sure what's the matter with it. Maybe also even if you're in that situation, if you could describe what's wrong with the drink, like, if it's not sweet enough for you, or if, it doesn't taste flavorful enough, that can sort of give the barista a cue as to how they can fix the drink for you. But essentially just being, understanding and courteous and respectful when asking for the drink to be made goes a long way too. And I think, yeah. I think that's it. I guess one more thing I should also mention is, of course, patience too. Especially if, you see that there are a lot of people waiting in the lobby, there were a lot of people in the line ahead of you, and, you can peep over the bar and see that there's a lot of drinks, a lot of cups sitting on the bar. Obviously, this means that the barista is trying to get your drink out as fast as possible, but there are other people's drinks that need to come before yours. So it's really important as well to be patient when you're waiting. You know, if people who order after you receive their drink first, then I feel like it's more justified for you to, ask an inquiry, be like, hey, sorry to interrupt, but some people have gotten their drink before me and I'm just a little confused. Did my cup get lost? Whatever. But if everything is coming out in the order that it's meant to, and it's just taking a long time because there's a lot of drinks, there's no, just be patient. There's no need to be mean about it. You already paid for the drink, and you're anticipating receiving the drink, so you might as well just sit tight, hang out. Everybody has a phone nowadays, basically, chill out on your phone, browse some social media, do some reading, put on some tunes maybe if you have headphones, and just, kind of chill out while you wait for your drink. That's really important too. And it just, overall creates a more pleasant atmosphere, not only for the customers, but also for the baristas too. Yeah, so I think that is all of the little kind of tips I have. I hope that this video didn't come off as condescending in any way, or that I have some sort of moral high ground to speak on these things. But I just feel like these are, courtesies that, like I said, are common sense. And I just have experience, of course, obviously being a customer, but also now being a barista. I feel like, it's appropriate for me to have this dialogue. So I hope you can understand, and I hope that this didn't come off in any, sort of way. But anyways, I hope that you guys are having a great day. I hope that you are staying safe and sane, healthy, entertained, and motivated. If you are protesting, I hope that you are staying safe as well. I'm unsure if there will be any demonstrations in my town, but if there are, and if I am not working, I will most certainly be there. Solidarity in this time is so extremely important, and I'm not going to get into really political stuff because I don't feel like this is necessarily the space for me to do that. There are other avenues that I utilize and can utilize to speak more on those issues, but that's a reality of the world right now. People are protesting. So if you are protesting, please stay safe. And always have, an emergency contact, somebody that you can talk to if, things go awry. But yeah, I, again, hope you guys are just having a great day. I thank you so much for sticking with me throughout this video. I think this may be my longest Barista Basics video to date, but at least we have some pretty nice scenery behind us for this one. But yeah, I will see you on Saturday for a new Everybody's Gone to the Rapture part. And yeah, I'll see you next week for a new Barista Basics video. And until then, I hope you take care. See you soon.